Hi everyone, we're going to get going on the spring cleaning webinar. So today we're going to start in the address book. So finding the address book, you're going to go to the more options down on the bottom left. If you do have APs, this is where you can also go in to manage your APs, which we don't have any here, and also manage owner logins. No, it looks like we don't have any owner logins either. So from that, let's see, hold on. So if you reset it, it was linking, it was attaching here, manage owner logins. You can see your owner logins. You can either create new owner logins or inactivate any current ones that you do have. Also with the address book, that's not login related, is just kind of all of your different customers, vendors, labs, and owners. So if we go to owners, vintrace will give you a list of everybody in your address book that is considered an owner. If you used to make wine for people, now you don't, this is a great time to go through and kind of clean up that address book. You've got two options to clean up the address book, one by clicking on the owner and inactivating them and hitting save. The second option is actually if you are a local vintrace admin, you can go to import export out the address book, and then from the Excel file, you can actually inactivate and then import it back in. So I'll show you guys that right now. You will not be able to inactivate anybody that still owns items in vintrace. So if you do have an old owner that no longer makes wine, you've removed all of their wine, but they still have barrels or kegs, you will need to inactivate them before you can inactivate the kegs and barrels before you can inactivate them as an owner. So from the Excel file, we'll just want to scroll over. Oh, I can't see. Yep. Sorry. To column AO, where it says inactive, and you'll want to, let me move this over more, can I? You'll want to change false to true. By setting it to true, vintrace will automatically inactivate this for you. What's also nice is you can technically delete all of this other information to make the file not so large. Because all vintrace needs is when you import this back in is the name and the VinX2 ID and then the inactive and true. So we can also even delete here. If you do need to input people's bonds, if you are realizing you're generating bills of ladings for owners, for customers, for vendors that don't have a bond number auto-generating, this is where you can also go through and add in all those bond numbers. But you can delete all this, inactivate everything, save this as a CSV file, and then after you've saved this as a CSV file, you'll be able to click the import button. You'll want to find the file where you just saved it. Tell vintrace you're updating existing records and then import the organization. So from that file, it will automatically inactivate everybody that you need, or update bonds, address, names, any details that you edit on the Excel file will import. If you delete items, like I deleted the addresses and the bonds, that will not delete out of vintrace. From the Excel file, it only edits information, does not delete anything that you delete from the Excel file. All right, if you guys have any other questions about the address book, please let us know. The next area we're gonna dive into, back into the address book. We're gonna talk about setting up your ETS integration, your Y15, your Kimwell, any lab equipment you have, making sure that is set up. So from your organizations, I can quickly type in labs and then find my ETS. If you do not have ETS or Y15 created yet, you can add an organization. So we're going to start with the ETS integration. And then from the lab here, you will click edit. And then this is where you're going to kind of start with your ETS integration. First thing is configured client ID. So if you are a custom crush facility, you are able to add all of your owners and all of their 5-digit client ID. So if you do have any of their ETS stickers on the sheets that ETS gives you, you can copy that, their customer code from the ETS sticker and put that in vintrace. And then vintrace will print the ETS stickers for you with the client code that ETS needs. And just for you guys know, for Custom Crush, if a client makes wine at your winery and somebody else's, by putting that data there, you will not be able to log into their ETS account or see any of their other wines analysis. Only wines that you request from your vintrace will then autofill into your vintrace. The next step that does take a little bit of time is the configuring the metrics. So what I recommend is downloading your ETS results as a Excel file. And then from there, you will need to copy and paste how ETS calls it and how you have it named in vintrace. So here in vintrace, we have it called free SO2, and ETS label spells it out. So then you'll go through and just copy and paste each item, and making sure how it was named in vintrace and then how it is named in ETS. The next one is your third-party login details. So this is where you actually have to send an email to ETS. Whoever is the primary account holder will need to send an email to ETS letting you guys know, or letting them know that you have vintrace and you want to have vintrace and ETS integrate with each other, and they will give you a unique username and a unique password that is not the same username and not the same password that you log into your ETS account from yours. So they will create a whole new one for vintrace. And you will want to choose the lab as ETS. If you are on the Central Coast and you are using Baker Wine Labs, it'll be exactly the same process. And then if you do want vintrace to print your ETS label, you'll want to type in here ETS. And then the auto print, that means every time you request a lab, vintrace will auto print the labels out of your Dymo printer without you saying, please print these labels. Every time you request a lab analysis for the ETS lab, the labels will automatically print. And then lab printer name. So if you do have a Dymo printer, this is where you can sync it up through PrintNode. So by clicking on the cloud, you will be able to set up an account. So then anybody at your winery can print lab labels through the PrintNode to the Dymo. So you do not need one Dymo printer per person. You just need kind of one for winery or one the lab, and it will auto print. So really you can be at home requesting lab labels and it will print to that printer. If you need help with any of this, please contact your IT person or email support. So that is setting up your ETS. The Y15 or Kimwell or Foss is all very similar. Again, you'll want to call it Y15 or Kimwell. Choose your lab. And then from there, you do not need to configure an ID, but you do need to configure the metrics names. So exactly like you had to do for ETS, you'll want to open up your Y15 and see how it names all of your metrics, and then go through and make sure everything matches. So here you have glue/fru, the Y15 does glucose-fructose. And then after you're done with all of that, then everything will be synced. You don't need to worry about a path because vintrace will just print out its default labels for your Y15. And again, if you want to do that auto print and the lab printer, and you can set them up that ETS goes to maybe the Cellar Masters printer and the Y15 will print out of the lab's Dymo printer. So you can have them go to different areas of different printers or different areas in the winery as well. If you guys do need any help with any of this, from the question mark at the bottom, if you type in Y15, Our online help will walk you through on how to set up your Y15. All right. Okay, so I think that's everything with setting up your lab integrations. If you have any questions, please let us know. All right, so now we're going to dive into setup. And we're going to start with our fruit sources. So from here, we have our winery setup and fruit sources. So again, very much like the address book, again, if you have local vintrace admin permission, you will be able to import and export. If you do not, you will have to select grower by grower. That will bring up your grower, bring up your vineyards, and bring up your blocks. And then you can manually, one by one, inactivate them. If you are a local vintrace admin, you can export this out to an Excel file that you can then inactivate any unused vineyards. So this is a great time to go through and clean up any of your vineyards that you no longer have contracts with, any vineyards you've ripped out, you're replanting, you can inactivate those. But from this Excel file, you cannot create new ones. You can just inactivate or rename the blocks. But you do not want to rename the block if it used to be Merlot and now you've planted Cab. You will need to inactivate the Merlot block and then create a new block for the Cab. Because vintrace links everything with this VinX2 ID number. That will also then change the history of all of your past wines. So if you're changing varietals on blocks, you're also changing the weigh tags and also changing all the historical wines compositions that's tied to that block. And also from this Excel file, you can update block information, putting clones, putting rootstocks, putting number of rows, number of vines. You can also go, this could be a time to update all of your vineyard information. And again, anything that you don't want to see, you can delete, and that will not physically delete it from vintrace. And also, if you are a custom crush facility, you can actually download the headers. And from this download of the headers, you can email this to your custom crush clients and have them fill it out for all of their vineyards. And again, you can delete a lot of this information. Just tell them they need to do the name, which is actually the block. And then they don't need a description or a lot of this other information. We can just delete all of that. We just need like grower, vineyard, and then I think varietal. And the nice thing is you can delete everything and just leave the core columns. And then what I always recommend, if this is the first time that you're importing and exporting into vintrace, import it into your demo database first and make sure there's no errors, nothing goes funky. If everything goes smooth and looks great, then import it into your live database. All right, so that's kind of clean up vineyards and blocks and also having clients create those vineyards and blocks for you. All right, so next we're going to dive into additives. So a lot of wineries have had past people create additives. You may have duplicated or you just want to organize your additives. So you have a couple options. Again, you can go one by one and create new additives or go one by one and rename the additives. Or again, you can export your additives and rename them. When I mean rename them, it could be you want to add the word enzyme in front of them. You do not want to change sin-free to Color Pro because again, the history of all of the wines that have had that additive will change. So you just want to kind of rename them to organize them better by putting enzyme in front, having oak chip, oak dust in front. So making it very easy and have everything in order by alphabetical by the type of additive it is. And also while you're doing this import export, you want to make sure that your yeast has a cause treatment to start alcoholic fermentation. And it can also change the state of the wine, where you could be started fermentation or ready for Brix and temp, or now it's ready for acid and water adds. So also from here, you can change the product state and also have it start fermentation. All right, so clean up those additive templates. Again, this is a great time to go through, inactivate any old ones. If you want to see things that have been inactivated, you can click here and see the list. And again, making sure that your inoculation templates are going to cause a treatment to start fermentation, and then changing the product state to either inoculated or ready for first nutrient add. However your winery sets up your product states, making sure that this is helping you change it as well. Someone did ask a question about how do we know what's required. So if you actually go to create a new additive and you click save, you'll see that these 3 boxes are what's required. But if we actually go to our vineyard blocks and say we want to add a new block, when you hit save, you'll see the only required fields. So if you do export out that Excel file and send it to clients to fill out, the only ones that are required is the vineyard, the varietal, the block name, and then also the grower. Here, the vineyard is attached to the grower. All righty. So we got our additive templates, also analysis templates. You'll want to make sure once you do set up your ETS lab integration that you do create some ETS panels. And from those, you can create your ETS panel, again, changing the product state, lab label, you will want to write in ETS here. So then I'll default to the ETS printer. And if there is a cost, this isn't client billing cost, this is winery cost. So then it will add $100 to the cost of that wine every time this is ran against the wine. If you have any old ones or a lot of duplicates, you can go through here and inactivate any of those. Or add more sample instructions, changing the product state again from these items. So being like mallow dry, it can change the product state to completed, ready for ready for sulfur, things like that. And then also standard notes. These are all of your SOPs. So again, going through, making sure your instructions are very clear. You've got extra sanitation steps. And if you are unhappy with any of these, you can inactivate them. And then also wineries, make sure you have inactivated any types that you don't need. If you are not making cherry wine, you can go in here and inactivate the cherry wine, so it's no longer an option when you see types. If you start making cherry wine, you can find it in your inactives and bring it back. All right, so next we're just going to jump down to workflow and defaults. You'll want to make sure if you still have the default set for your 2019 vintage, I'd probably set that to reset, because you are working with your 2018s, 2017s, bottling, transferring, filtering, blending. This will give you an option to not have the 2019 vintage always default. And then also going through here, making sure you're defaulting a certain building or scales, a certain lab. Go through and make sure these defaults make sense. And again, you have defaults for the whole system, defaults by winery. So if you are a multi-winery, you can set up the defaults by winery or by user. All right, and then also product states. I'm a big fan of product states. I love the product states in vintrace. This is where you can see the list of all of your product states and also inactivate any ones that don't make sense. Talk as a team to see, hey, what is our process in vintrace? When do we want things to be in what product state? And if you guys have any more questions about product states, please let me know. I love them. I'm a big fan of them. And then also with the product state, it's just a name and a description, and then it's very easy to inactivate any ones that you no longer need. All right, next one is infrastructure. And you want to start at the bottom of the list, which is your storage area, then work into your winery buildings. A lot of wineries have created tons of storage areas or too many or not enough. If you've created too many storage areas and you realize you've gotten maybe too detailed, again, we have the import-export option. You can't export out these storage areas, inactivate any of them that you're no longer using, and import new ones or create new ones as well. Make sure if you are importing to inactivate that you tell vintrace you're updating existing records. All right, next is vessels. So we're going to talk about barrels. You've got two ways to inactivate barrels in vintrace. Way number one is going through the winery setup and exporting out an Excel file and inactivating any old barrels. The other way, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is creating a barrel treatment and scanning any barrels that are inactive, or as you load a truck, scanning those barrels. So we're going to pretend first that the barrels are long gone. So by going into your barrel screen, you can again export your barrel registry and inactivate any old barrels. If you need to rename any barrels, again, through this Excel file, you can rename barrels. And also, if you are a custom crush facility, you can download the headers and send this file to your custom crush clients to fill out, or send this Excel file to one of your seller hands to fill out, and then you can import. And again, on the download header, you do not need to fill out all of the tabs. So we need the name and the owner. We don't need any of this. We can delete this. Oh, can't see my there. Okay. And then we need capacity, so we can delete those. Year, capacity, Cooper, Forest, wine color, oak type. And again, seasoning and toast, all of that is optional, so you can leave it for them to fill out. But again, year, capacity is required. None of this is required. Shoot, I deleted the location. And you'll need location. So those are the only fields that are required. So let me just create a barrel right now, call it B20 Hills. Owner will be vintrace, capacity 60 gallons, year will be 2020, and say Cooper, I did it wrong. I'm just gonna say Hillary, and location, we're gonna say barrel room. We will save this as it, make sure it's saved as a CSV file. Then we'll click find my file. Import file. And then we're not going to say updating existing because this is a brand new barrel. We'll import the barrel registry, and it gives you kind of an, hey, Hillary, this is what you filled out. Anything that has the little asterisk is what is required. And then if I scroll down here, then you can see the location. I have covered, I have filled out everything that vintrace requires. And then I've added extra details. And then I say continue. And then vintrace is going to say, hey, Hillary, you've kind of messed up. We do not have anything called barrel room. We do have a barrel shed. Is that what I want? And I said either create or ignore. So that means yes, I want to be called the barrel shed. The winery name is not Vintrace, it's Vintrace Winery. And then we do not have a Cooper named Hillary. So we can either do a quick create and Vintrace will create Hillary as a Cooper, or you can look through your list and be like, just kidding, I picked the wrong Cooper. So Vintrace does have the smarts that you will not duplicate Coopers or owners. It matches what's currently in Vintrace, and if it can't find it, it'll ask, would you like to create it? Then after you've done that, we can say continue, and it will tell you you've successfully created a new barrel. So then I go say %sign Hill, I can find my B20 Hills barrel right here. Okay, so any questions on barrels, please let us know. Oh wait, oops, I don't want to do that. Next, we're going to go into our tanks. So again, very similar to tanks. You can export out your tanks and report them and import them back in, or create new tanks from here. From your tanks, what we are going to talk about is adding your dip tables. So from any of your tanks, so you can see this tank here has a dip chart that has all the information. You can download this as a CSV. If it did not have a dip chart, you can download a blank file that you can input all of the dips, and then you can import it back in. The nice thing is once you've imported this for one tank, I can go, so this is tank 1, 4,000 gallons. If I go to tank 023, and we're going to say this tank is also 4,000 gallons. Say these are exactly the same tank. I can go into the dip chart, copy from tank 1. Let's do that, T-01. So then I go back into here. I go import export table, copy from T-01. It'll bring it up. You want to copy the dip table? Yes. And then it'll autofill in the same dip. So you can enter in if you have 5, 10, 15 tanks of the same dip. You will just import the file in once, and then all the rest of the tanks you can copy the tank from. Alrighty, so next after that, we are going to jump down to treatments. So we'll first talk about product treatments. Product treatments, again, where you're going to create for your DE filtration, pad filtration, cross-flow filtration, your mixing tank, storing barrels, gassing tanks, anything that you do to a tank that you want to track. This is also great for custom crush facilities or just wineries in general. You can run a report on how many tanks, how many gallons did you cross flow this quarter, this month, this year? How often do you stir barrels? You can run a report and see every time you've stirred barrels, like, hey, we stirred barrels 327 times over harvest. So treatments are great for just record keeping, running reports on it, as well as the new product treatments. You can have it change the product state. If you haven't caught on, I really love my product states. So again, it's been centrifuged, cross flow, cold settling. When you create a new treatment, all you need is the name, and it applies to wine and juice. And then you have the option to have it change a product state. If it needs to change a tax class, if you need to add a cost, you have all of those additional fields to fill out. And this is also a great time to inactivate old product states, product treatments, and then also create new ones or categorize them as filter-crossflow, filter-DE, filter-pad. I'm just organizing your treatments. And again, if you are reorganizing them and you do have the client billing module, making sure everybody's on the same page, that when you use the crossflow filtration, it's charging the winery 15 cents per gallon for that product treatment. The next treatment is barrels. Barrel treatment can deal with both empty barrels and full barrels. So we're going to start with empty barrels that you've sold, that clients have taken back, or you've turned into planter beds. So say we have the sold barrel, you can have it be named sold, client take, anything like that. But the biggest thing you want to make sure you're doing is telling vintrace to deactivate these barrels when used. So by creating this product treatment, you can save it to a work order, open up that work order on your app or your scanner or your tablet, and then the seller can actually scan the barrels as you load them to the truck, roll them out to the loading dock. You can scan all of those barcodes in. vintrace will deactivate those barrels and will also print a bill of lading with all of those barrels listed. By using this treatment at the end of the quarter, the year, the month, you can print out all the barrel numbers that you sold or you return to a client. If you sold barrels, you can give it to your accountant and they can take it off of your books. For a certain client comes to you like, hey guys, I can't find these 10 barrels. Do you have them? You can run this report and say, no, you took those barrels on January 5th. So it's great record keeping for both in-house and for clients. And then also creating one that's just like missing, can't find, being very specific. You have great records for later. And also you can move barrels with the product treatment. So if you are moving them from the warm room to the cold room, you can have the title be move from warm room to cold room, and then you would have your barrel storage area be your cold room here. This can also be used for if you are shipping barrels between different winery locations. So if you do have multi-wineries or multi-bonds, you can say moving to, winery in Hillsburg. So then it will move from your Sonoma bond to your Hillsburg bond. And again, you can run a report to see how often you move barrels between your different locations. And also this will trigger the bond to bond transfer on your TTB report. And then lastly is cleaning barrels. So you can also create a barrel treatment for ozoning, steaming, sanitizing, any type of washing, sulfuring, water check, pressure check, anything that you want to track that you do to barrels, both cleaning and getting ready for use. You can make a treatment for that. And if it is a cleaning state, you can have it change the barrel to ready for use and then not have it deactivate or anything like that. And then the last one is bringing barrels back. So if a client brings barrels back into vintrace, you can say bring back and then reactivate barrels when used. So again, if you are a custom crush facility that barrels are leaving and coming often, when a client brings back barrels, you can open up this work order that has the bring back treatment and then scan the barcodes as they come back into the winery, and vintrace will reactivate all of those barrels. And again, you will have a report indicating all the barrels you've reactivated. Alrighty, so if you have any other questions about treatments, please let us know. The last category is costing. So this is, again, cost of goods sold, not client billing costing. So just making sure if you are using vintrace for costing, that you go through and make sure if you want to inactivate any cost items, you can kind of reallocate them to accounts or anything like that. And then, general stock items and additives. So if this is, again, a list of all of your current additives. Again, you have to have the inventory module in vintrace to have this tab. Here's where you can inactivate any old ones, or again, import, export. You can rename additives and organize them so they make sense. If you're like, why does some additives start with add, ADD, why do some don't? You can export this out and make them all the same. And also inactivate them. This does not remove any inventory levels or have anything to do with your batch codes or lot tracking. This is just where you can find your additives, your capsules, corks, things like that. Again, you can export out, inactivate, and import back in. All right, so that's kind of the winery setup, cleanup route. If you have any questions about any of that, please let us know. Next, we're going to dive into, so we're going to go back to our home screen. Looks a little different. I'm going to scroll down here to the bottom, because this is where I have my saved searches are at the bottom of the screen. And at the bottom, you can see that you have wines that are still in ferment or unfermented juices or anything like that. So if I can see I have 51 unfermented wines. So we actually want to go in and stop those fermentations because everything's been sulfured, everything's done. So you have two options. You can either on your next sulfuring, making sure it causes a treatment to stop fermentation, or if you're like you just did that this week and you want to stop all of these, you can go in through the more options. We have a ferment, we have a harvest kind of list, and under ferments, this is where you can see all of your active ferments. So if I take this back to here, you can see a list. Let's go back a little bit farther. You'll see everything that we have fermenting to, oh yeah, that is today's date. And this will list everything. Then to stop them, you will have to manually hit stop. The stop date can be today and then now and save. So you do want to make sure everything is up to date with work orders and lab analysis, because by stopping the fermentation, you won't be able to backdate any work orders that were done 2 days ago. So make sure everything's up to date before you go in and enter in your stop fermentations. And for client billing, we don't need anything, so we can just exit out of that. And then go to the next one, stop, stop, stop. And this is for ferment, for alcohol, and then you also can do malic. And then you'll see your list of all of them. You can also change the vintage to be nothing, and it'll give you a list of everything that is going through malolactic. And then we can hit stop, again, today's date, and save. So just a lot of clicking for that. And if you are stopping fermentations and you do have the client billing module and a charge is coming up, you want to make sure you go through your billing items and not have a stop fermentation to probably trigger a charge. Okay, so that's stopping and cleaning up unfermented and fermenting wines. Next, we want to talk about fruit. So also going back, we'll actually need to go into our old vintrace for now and find our uncrushed parcels. So finding any fruit that someone might have accidentally double brought in or just left behind a couple ounces or a couple pounds of the fruit. That occasionally happens. So this will open up a list of all of your wines or all of your grapes that have not been crushed. And then so from here, you'll click on the one, you'll be able to see the tonnage. So like, okay, this one we double brought in. It'll bring up the fruit here. And I always tell people, look at the history. Okay, it happened on a long time ago. We won't go that far back. You can go here from the little adjustment or operation measurement. You can either set the date back to the date it happened or again, today's date. The new amount is 0. Hit the calculator. So then we're taking a loss of 4,000 pounds. and the loss reason can be a correction. You can also create a new loss reason as well called zeroing out double entry fruit or things like that. So we'll call it a correction and then save. So that'll be a way to clean up any of your uncrushed fruit. And then it'll ask you if you want to transfer any of the cost. This wine has 0 cost, or this grape, so we can just write it off and the 0 cost goes nowhere. All right, so that you'll want to go through and zero out any unused fruit. If you did bring fruit in and end up selling it, you can create a loss reason called sold fruit and assign it to that loss reason, and then you can run a report at the end of the year and see all of your sold fruit. Alrighty. So the next we're going to get into is inventory items. So going through your inventory. So this is inventory of corks, capsules, yeast, case goods, all of that inventory. So you can organize it, say, by additives, and by hitting search, this will give you a list of all of my additives. And you can see I have some nice negative red numbers. And then also wines that have very little to 0 amount of additives. So first thing I recommend is running a report for the physical inventory sheet. We have 2 physical inventory sheets that you can run. The first one is the original. I call this the cheat sheet one because it does tell you how many pounds or units vintrace thinks you have. So it says you have 100 pounds of bento with this batch code, so this bioterrorism lot code here, and the seller can agree or disagree with those numbers. If you don't want to have the cheat sheet one, you can do the enhancement one. So this one does not tell the seller how much you have. They have to weigh it, they have to count it and enter in here. So they do not know it's a negative number, positive number, a tiny number, or a large number, but then it does give the lot code. So if you do have something like DAP here, so you can see we have lots and lots of DAP, it will give you the indicate of every single lot code and what warehouse and where it's stored. After you've gone through and you've had the seller update all of that information, you'll want to then enter a physical inventory. And from the physical inventory, the most important thing is to do the date first. So say this was done yesterday, vintrace will update any of these numbers that if they changed. So say today you wrote a DAP ad to use 50 pounds of DAP. If you set that to today's date, it'll have the 50 pounds removed already. By setting it to yesterday's date, it will have shown that there was still 50 pounds in that inventory. So then you'll go through and say, okay, really, we only had 75 pounds of this. We had 0 of this. We had 8 pounds of this. We actually had 1,000 kilos of this. So then you can go through and enter in what you actually had. And then over here, it'll ask, do you want to keep the cost at? So yes, you want, I mean, again, talk to your accountants, but you'd normally want to keep the cost at 4 cents a pound. If you do not check that with the 25 pounds we lost, this 4 cents per pound would probably go up to, say, 6 cents per pound. So then your price per unit will be increased. Okay, and then any of them that you could not find, so say the seller could not find this DAP and they don't know if it was truly not there, they just couldn't find it, you can just X out anything that you did not count, and vintrace will not zero that out or will not increase the numbers. It just will not enter a stock take. And then once I hit save, vintrace is going to yell at me because I did not do all the rest of the page. So anything that you missed, it will tell you that you did not enter in the correct information. So, alrighty, and we're going to cancel this. If you are doing this for any case goods or bottled wine, so you want to make sure when you are entering in a physical inventory for bottled wine, it'll be a little bit different than additives because bottled wine is bonded. And then it will give you a, instead of stock take, you will want to make sure you are choosing a TTB event if need be. So if things were broken or destroyed or dumped back to bulk or used for testing or anything like that. So again, making sure if you're unknown what you need to choose for case goods or bottled wine, please reach out to whoever your compliance person or winemaker or double check how you should be documenting any cases that are lost or destroyed. If you do need to dump any of those case goods back to bulk, please let us know and we can walk you through that as well. Alrighty. I think that is everything I had on the agenda today for kind of cleaning up. Also, wait, we can go back to the inventory items. You do want to make sure you do have a category set. So as I scroll through here, you can see my Paso Zen does not have a category. By clicking on it, you can hit the pencil and find the stock category and add this to bottled wine. And then now when I close out of here, if I re-hit search, it will show now the category bottled wine for that. Also for a, let's go to the DAP. Also, you'll see me using the percent sign of lot. The percent sign is a wild card. So I don't know if my DAP is add DAP or how it's spelled out. So vintrace, by putting the percent sign, will find anything that has the 3 letters DAP together. So I have all these DAPs. If I do click on a DAP and I go to my lot codes, you will see a list of all of your lot codes. So from here, you will be able to click on any of them through the pencil and inactivate a lot code if you don't have any more, or if you, when you brought in the bag, it did not have a lot code. So you said received on March 30th, find lot code later. Now you found that lot code, you can go in and fix that lot code or add an expiration date or anything like that. Alrighty, and then also the last thing is, we have 2 more things. Lab work orders and lab request. And then the tank map. So from the tank map, by clicking on the kind of upside down pyramid, this is where you can create or edit tank maps. You can have multiple tank maps. You can have one tank map that includes all of your tanks in the whole winery, and then also have, so you have one tank map that has all of your tanks in the whole winery, and then you could have 3 separate tank maps that include inside tanks, outside tanks, and another room. So from here, you can see all of your tank maps. You can sort by certain tank rooms or anything like that. So, okay. I actually don't know how. I can't. Okay, so over here, while I was hiding, by clicking the gear, you can edit your tank map or refresh your settings. So we're going to edit this tank map. And then this is where you can create the size. So if you are doing one tank map for your whole winery, you'll probably want to set this maybe 50 tiles by 50 tiles, 100 tiles by 100. And then you can also choose the 5 descriptors that you want and the 5 analysis to be shown with that tank map. Once you've done that, you can hit next. And then here's your tank map. So then you can rearrange your tanks, add in additional tanks, or move things around. And then once you're happy with that, you can hit save. And then we've edited our tank map. And then, yep, so let me close out of this. All right, so the last thing we have to do is deleting old lab analysis and old work orders. So every time you write a new work order, if you're getting prereqs that are super old and you're like, where are these coming from? Those prereqs are coming from old work orders and old lab requests that have not been cleaned up. So the first place we'll start is in the lab console. So what I recommend is clicking ignore date, choosing your lab to reset, and making sure all of these boxes are empty, and then hit search. So by doing that, that'll bring up all of your lab analysis that's never been completed, which could be from years ago or 3 days ago. And then you can see here is I have 645 results. You can one by one click delete. So if you only have a handful of them, then going one by one is fine. If you have hundreds like I do, you can go actions, delete this page. So then it will delete all lab requests that we have on this page. We'll say okay. And once you delete these, you cannot undelete them. So make sure you are deleting lab analysis that you do want gone. If you do have a lot of lab analysis that you haven't completed in the last week, you can set up the date range and have this from date be as of like 2 weeks ago or a month ago. So we could go back and have this be, okay, only from March 1st, but then this date could go back 5, 10 years. And then you want to go through and just delete all of those. Again, actions, delete this page. I wouldn't recommend doing more than about 50 or 100 per page. It will make vintrace think really hard. So keep it at 50 per page. You can double check you want to delete all of those and clean that up. The next is going to your clipboard, so your jobs, and deleting old work orders. So same thing like lab request. We want to set the date back to, again, you can do a date range. So scheduled from forever ago to, and it could be like, okay, I only want this to be the last month. I'll go, we'll just say this year. And then when I hit search, it'll give me a list of all of my drafts, my ready, in progress, submitted. So then also from here, I can say only show me the drafts and ready. And then from the drafts folder, I can click on it, see I have 4 drafts. With these, you can confirm and delete. So I can highlight all the one I want to delete, cancel, and please confirm I wish to cancel and delete these work orders. By deleting these work orders, you cannot undelete them. So I will say yes. And now I have 0 in my drafts. Then I can go to my readies next. And again, you can select one by one. And then at the bottom, hit actions, cancel selected work orders, or one by one, the drop down arrow and hit cancel work orders. Alrighty, so I think that is everything I have. I'm going to show you guys a couple reports that I talked about. So through operations, we have operation throughput report. We can choose our operation treatments, and then you can choose your treatment. So again, like I was saying, your cross-flow filtration, how many gallons did you cross-flow? How many barrels did you stir? Things like that. This is where you can run those product treatment reports. And then also with losses, so after you've not that loss. I want inventory, sorry. So inventory, after you've done all those adjustments of case goods that are lost, corks, capsules, yeast, you can go down here to kind of your stock report. We'll date this back. Actually, I don't think I actually deleted anything, did I? You can generate these reports and it'll show you any gains and losses in your stock additives. We did not complete any of that, so we will not have any of that. And then also with the stock movement report, we'll go back a few days. And then here is the stock movement report, and you'll be able to see on specific dates there was movements, and it'll tell you why. It was either dispatched, consumed, or if we did take a loss, it'll indicate items were stock taked, adjusted out. And then this also gives you, I believe, any additional notes, what work orders they were tied to, and all of that. All right, so that's everything I have for today's kind of spring clean webinar. I will look through all the questions. I will also open it up for live questions, feedback. And again, remember, we are doing a new vintrace webinar next Tuesday, April 7th at 3 p.m. And we will be recording and sending this out. All right, so opening up for questions. And please make sure you're giving us feedback on any of your, what you like about the new vintrace. Make sure you download the app and have a great rest of your week. All righty. All right, so here someone asked, when importing and exporting, is there a list of required columns for each CSV? So on the CSV does not indicate the required fields, but as I showed you guys, you can either look in vintrace and see the fields that turn pink that are required, or as you upload it, vintrace will add a little asterisk on everything that needs to be filled out. And if you do have any questions, please let us know. We can also send you, tell you for those items for barrels, you need the name, the owner, the location, and the capacity. So we also had someone else ask, what about water ads increasing the volume of wine? So yes, when you create a water ad, there's an option to tick a box that says increase volume by amount, and then choose the reason, being a water addition, a bricks adjustment, you can create. So someone also asked, does renaming barrels change the history of the barrel? So no, because vintrace, every barrel, every additive, everything in vintrace has a VinX2 ID number, which I like to look at it as it's a Social Security number. Once that barrel or vineyard or block has been assigned that VinX2 ID number, all of the history and everything is attached to that VinX2 ID number. Nothing is attached to the actual name, just that VinX2. So you can rename barrels, rename tanks, and the history of those vessels will stay the same. The name will be that new name, but the history is still there. All right. Perfect. Yes, submit ideas. We do look through the vintrace ideas every 2 weeks. So we will be looking at them next Wednesday. So every other Wednesday, we read through all of your vintrace ideas. You are able to see if it's been planned, if it's been submitted, if it's been delivered, or if we're waiting for feedback. Please go in, vote on other people's ideas. The more feedback we get from you, the better we can make vintrace for you. You guys are the ones that are using vintrace every day. and knows how to make vintrace even better. All right, is there a list of treatments or a list of product states? We do not have a default list. If you do reach out to me personally, I can give you a list of ones that I really like, or I can talk with you, figure out how your winery operates and works, and find the best treatments that make sense for your winery. And same thing with product states. What I want to talk about with product states is you have to think about the levels or kind of the life cycle of a wine. So I like to compare it to school. When kids start school, you have kindergarten, then they have to go to first grade, second grade, third grade. Kids can skip grades, but ideally you go one grade after the other. So when you're looking at product states for wine, you want to think the same way. So I look at it as they start at like kindergarten, which could be cold soak. And then once you pull a juice sample, then the product state will change to ready for inoculation or ready for acid and water adjustments, then ready for inoculation. And then after inoculation, it's then ready for its first nutrient add. After its first nutrient add, the next product state will be its second nutrient add. After the second nutrient add, it's like ready for pressing, and then after that, it's RS checks, maybe monthly RS checks, bi-monthly, weekly. So it's changing the product state as the RS drops. Then from there, it moves an ML check. So again, following it through the wine's life. So reach out to me. We can walk through, find out what makes the most sense for your winery with product states and treatments, and making sure vintrace is automatically changing the product statements for you. All right, so doesn't look like we have any other questions. Please give us feedback on this new vintrace, things you would love to see, functionalities you would want to see for harvest by clicking, again, the question mark at the bottom. It says suggest an idea. I will show you guys what it looks like. Let it load. That's weird, it's not letting me. Here we go. So after you enter in your company name, remember you make sure you remember the company name, use your vintrace username and password. Oops. Okay. So this is what it looks like when you log into the vintrace ideas. You'll be able to see everything on the right is things that we have planned. So printing barrel barcodes, syncing new items on purchase orders. So this is everything we have planned. And then if we go to say 3 pages, we have a lot of stuff that's awaiting feedback. So scale worksheet breakdown by bin. So say this is something that you're really passionate about, or say here, improved cap management. If we click on here, you can then add feedback. So you can see what other people have written. And then you can also vote. So if you like this, you can say, I like this. And then you can also add like with this cap management, I would like to also see these functionalities. So please give us your feedback. If you have examples, send us examples, add those screenshots here. If you don't want to add them here, send them to us personally, and we will add them on the back end so our developers can see it. The more feedback we get from you guys, we'll see our developers, we'll see that, okay, this has 12 votes. Okay, it gets 15, it gets 20, it gets 30. That means we need to see how that can fit in our timeline to be created for our Q2. We're working on all of our Q2 enhancements, and then also creating for Q3 and Q4. So please give us feedback. We want your feedback. Vintrace is for you guys. So with your feedback, we can make a better vintrace. All right, well, everybody stay safe out there. Have a great rest of your week. And we're still working 9 to 5 in our US. All of our US employees are working from home, and Australia is still doing same business hours. Again, everybody's from home. answering your calls if you guys need some training, some touch-ups, and then we will be sending this webinar out probably tomorrow. Then you can have other staff members, or you can rewatch this video as well. Thank you. If you have any more questions, please send them through.